Hey guys, tonight we travel back to a crisp spring day in Tudor England to the year 1536. Imagine the scene. You're sitting high in a lavishly decorated gallery overlooking a tournament ground. The air smells of crushed grass, horse sweat, and expensive perfume. Below you, knights in polished steel armor, their horses draped in velvets and silks, charge at one another with splintering lances. The crowd roars, the sun is shining, and you are the Queen of England. You are Anne Boleyn, and this perfect golden afternoon is the last one you will ever know. If you were a Tudor queen who had, after years of trying, failed to produce a male heir, your survival odds were, well, let's just say you wouldn't be betting your last gold angel on it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It makes a huge difference. And while you're at it, post your location and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together, the first day of May, a day for celebration, for renewal. You're at Greenwich Palace, your favorite of all the royal residences, the place where you were born into a life of grasping ambition. The spring air is meant to feel light, but for you, it's heavy with unspoken anxieties. You smooth down the impossibly fine French silk of your gown, the deep green fabric a compliment to your famously dark eyes. You are the pinnacle of European fashion, a trendsetter whose every choice is scrutinized and copied. But lately you feel less like a queen and more like an actress playing a part she's beginning to forget the lines to. Down below, your husband, King Henry VIII, is the star of the show. Even in his mid-40s, he's still a powerful figure, a force of nature stuffed into jewel-encrusted silks, and a ridiculous, albeit fashionable, codpiece. He loves these displays of martial prowess. They remind everyone, and perhaps himself, that he is still the vigorous, magnificent prince who inherited the throne. You watch him, a practiced smile fixed on your face. You have to be seen to be enjoying this. You have to be seen to be adoring him. The entire court is your audience, and they are a tough crowd. Their whispers are the 16th century equivalent of doom-scrolling a particularly toxic social media feed, and you are always the trending topic. You're aware of the more outlandish rumors, the Catholic propaganda that paints you as a monster. They say you have a sixth finger, carefully hidden inside your elegant gloves, or a disfiguring mole on your throat that you conceal with your signature high-necked chemises and ropes of pearls. It's all nonsense, of course, born of hatred for the woman who supplanted the beloved Catherine of Aragon and broke England from the Roman Church. But lies, you've learned, don't have to be true to be damaging. They just have to be repeated. Your gaze drifts across the stands and lands, as it always seems to do these days, on Jane Seymour. There she is, pale, quiet, demure Jane. She is everything you are not. Where you are sharp-witted and argumentative, she is meek. Where you are all flashing eyes and vibrant French style, she is the picture of placid, blonde English maidenhood. And the king's eyes, you've noticed, are drifting to her more and more. You see the locket he gave her, which she now wears openly, a deliberate, silent challenge to your authority. A few weeks ago, you famously ripped it from her neck with such force that your fingers bled. A very public, very unqueenly display. You regretted it instantly. It was a sign of weakness, of fear. The source of that fear is a ghost that haunts your every waking moment, the son you failed to deliver. Just last January, you miscarried. The physicians, their faces grim, confirmed it was a boy of about 15 weeks. That loss was the turning point. It was then that you felt the foundation of your world crack. Henry's disappointment was a palpable thing, a cold fury that settled over the court like a fog. He had moved heaven and earth to have you. He had defied the Pope, cast off a wife of 24 years, and remade the religious landscape of his entire kingdom, all for a son, and you had failed. Again. Historians still argue whether Henry's disenchantment was a gradual cooling or if a specific event, a single misstep, provided the excuse he was already seeking. Was he truly tired of your famously fiery temper and political meddling? Or was he just a man desperate for an heir, methodically planning your removal to make way for a new, hopefully more fertile wife? Today, though, the mood seems lighter. The joust is going well. Your brother, George Boleyn, Lord Rochford, is one of the lead challengers, looking dashing and confident. The king has been smiling. Maybe, you allow yourself to think, just maybe, the worst is over. Maybe the spring will bring a true renewal. Maybe you can win him back. A rider thunders past the royal box. It's Sir Henry Norris, a groom of the E. Stool, one of the king's closest and most trusted companions. He's also a great admirer of yours. Too great, perhaps. He's a friend, but in the venomous ecosystem of the court, a friendship between a man and a woman, especially the queen, is always suspect. The tournament continues. Lances shatter. The crowd cheers. And then, something happens. The specific details are lost to us, a footnote in a court chronicle, but the consequence is catastrophic. The king takes a fall from his horse. He isn't seriously injured, but he is shaken, his mood instantly soured. He decides he has had enough of the festivities for one day. He rises to leave, his face a thundercloud. And then he turns and speaks to a handful of his trusted counselors, his voice low, but his expression grim. Among them is the architect of your rise, the man who is now quietly plotting your fall. Thomas Cromwell. Henry and his small party depart for Whitehall Palace with a speed that is both unusual and alarming. He doesn't even say goodbye to you. He just leaves. You are left sitting in the royal box, the Queen of England, suddenly and very publicly abandoned by your king. The cheering of the crowd seems to fade, replaced by a low hum of confused murmuring. Every eye in the place is now on you, watching, analyzing. What does this mean? Your smile feels brittle, like it might shatter. You try to maintain your composure, to act as if this is perfectly normal. But a cold dread begins to seep into your bones. This is wrong. Something is terribly, terribly wrong. You remain seated for a moment, a marble statue of a queen. Leaving too quickly would look like panic. Staying too long would look like defiance. Every single action is a political calculation. It is exhausting. Finally, with a grace you do not feel, you rise. You nod to your ladies-in-waiting, a silent command to pack up, to follow you. As you walk from the gallery, the whispers follow. You like the rustle of dry leaves. It's a sound you've become accustomed to, but today it feels different, louder, sharper, less like gossip, more like the hiss of a fuse burning towards a powder keg. This is where the story gets murky, where the frantic scribblings of panicked courtiers and the biased reports of foreign ambassadors become our only guide. Historians still argue whether the handkerchief incident ever truly happened, or if it was a convenient fiction invented later to add a touch of sordid drama to the official narrative. But imagine it. Perhaps, in a moment of flirtatious gallantry, you let your embroidered handkerchief fall from the royal box. Below, Sir Henry Norris, ever the perfect courtier, dismounts, retrieves it, and perhaps even wipes his face with it before returning it to you. A gesture, a trifle. In a normal court, it would be a charming piece of theater. But this is not a normal court. This is Henry's court, and a simple handkerchief can be spun into a declaration of illicit love. Or maybe it was just a conversation. As you made your way from the stands, Norris approached you. He was a friend, and you, feeling isolated and unnerved by the king's departure, might have sought a moment of familiar comfort. The conversation, as recorded later by those who would use it against you, was dangerously familiar. You lightly chastised him for visiting Jane Seymour's chambers so often. Was he in love with her? No, he insisted. His heart was set elsewhere. And then you said it. A light, teasing, unbelievably foolish remark. You look for dead men's shoes, you quipped. For if aught were to happen to the king, you would look to have me. A common, if rather morbid, Tudor idiom for waiting for someone. To die to gain an advantage. To you, it was a joke, a bit of the sharp, witty banter you were famous for. To the eavesdroppers, the professional rumor-mongers paid by your enemies, it was treason. You had just discussed the king's death and your subsequent marriage to another man. It was all they needed. You arrive back at your royal apartments in Greenwich Palace, the familiar luxurious rooms now feeling strangely cold, like a stranger's house. You try to rationalize the king's behavior. He took a fall. He was embarrassed. He's prone to fits of temper. He will cool down. He will send for you this evening, and you will soothe his wounded pride as you have done 100 times before. You tell yourself this, over and over, a desperate mantra against the rising tide of fear. But the afternoon wears on, and no message comes. No flowers, no note of apology, no summons. Just a deepening, echoing silence from the king's side of the palace. Your ladies-in-waiting flutter around you, their faces tight with anxiety, their attempts at cheerful chatter falling flat. They know, as you do, that the king's silence is more terrifying than his rage. Then a knock on the door. Not the familiar tap of a trusted servant, but a hard, official rap. Your heart leaps, a painful thud against your ribs. A delegation enters. It includes your uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, his face a mask of grim duty. And with him are other members of the Privy Council, men who once bowed to you, who owed their positions to you. Now they don't look at you. They look past you, through you. Their Tudor-era poker faces are impeccable, but you can feel the shift. The power dynamic in the room has been completely inverted. They inform you that the king has commanded you to present yourself to the council to answer certain questions. Your blood runs cold. This is not how it's done. The king speaks to his wife himself. He doesn't send a committee. You try to maintain your regal composure, asking what matter could be so urgent. They are evasive. Their refusal to give you a straight answer is more damning than any accusation. They tell you that 2 men from the court have already been arrested and taken to the Tower of London, your friend, Henry Norris, and a court musician, a young man of low birth named Mark Smeaton. Smeaton. The name hangs in the air. Why him? He's a talented lute player, a handsome young man you've enjoyed listening to, perhaps even danced with. But he is a commoner. He would never have private access to you. The pairing is bizarre. Norris, the king's closest friend, and Smeaton, a musician. It makes no sense. Unless the point is to make no sense. Unless the point is to create a story so scandalous, so wide-ranging in its scope, that it ensnares everyone, from the highest noble to the lowest servant. You are being framed. The realization hits you not like a lightning bolt, but like a slow, creeping paralysis. This isn't a test of your loyalty. This isn't one of Henry's jealous games. This is a coup, orchestrated by Cromwell, sanctioned by the king. You are to be removed. You look at your uncle's face, searching for a flicker of family loyalty, of compassion. You find nothing. He is a Howard first, and the Howards are experts at survival. And right now, you are the sinking ship they are all desperate to abandon. The council members inform you that you are to be escorted from Greenwich, not to Whitehall to see the king, but down the river. To the Tower, the journey down the River Thames is a surreal nightmare. The sky has turned a dull, ominous gray, mirroring the cold dread that has settled in your chest. You are in the royal barge, the very same vessel that once carried you in triumph to your coronation. The memory feels like a scene from another person's life. Then you were the ascendant star, the whole of London roaring your name, the riverbanks thick with cheering crowds. Now you glide past in a bubble of chilling silence. The barge master has been given specific, cruel instructions. He is not to take the direct route, but to meander, to ensure that the citizens of London see their queen being taken to the Tower. It's a piece of political theater, a public shaming designed to cement your guilt in the popular imagination before any trial has even begun. As you sit under the canopy, your ladies huddled around you weeping, your mind races. Smeaton and Norris, what could they possibly accuse you of with them? The charges, when they are finally laid out before you in the Tower, are more depraved and shocking than you could ever have imagined. It's not just adultery, it's a systematic campaign of debauchery. The indictment claims that for the past 3 years, at various royal palaces, you have repeatedly, maliciously, and traitorously procured men to have carnal relations with you. The language is brutal, legalistic, and designed to strip you of all dignity. The names on the list are a gut punch. Sir Henry Norris, of course. Sir Francis Weston and Sir William Brereton, 2 other handsome, high-spirited young gentlemen of the Privy Chamber. And Mark Smeaton, the musician. 5 men in total, including your own brother, George Boleyn, Lord Rochford. The accusation against your brother is the most venomous of all: incest. It is a charge so monstrous, so taboo, that it is clearly designed to make you utterly irredeemable in the eyes of the public and God. It's also a fringe tidbit of history that your accusers were incredibly specific, even citing the exact locations of your supposed trysts, from the palace at Whitehall to a long-forgotten manor in Kent. They are building a detailed, if completely fictitious, timeline. This is Thomas Cromwell's genius at work. His cold, calculating hand is behind every detail. Remember him? The blacksmith's son from Putney, the Machiavellian political operator who engineered your rise and was now, with terrifying efficiency, engineering your fall. He knows that a single charge of adultery might be dismissed as a fit of royal jealousy. But a conspiracy, a pattern of wanton behavior involving multiple men, including your own flesh and blood, that paints a picture of a degenerate monster who has defiled the royal bed and, by extension, the succession. It implies that the king's daughter, Elizabeth, may not even be his child. It is a brilliant, ruthless strategy. The accusations are built on a foundation of whispers, half-truths, and coerced testimony. The process begins not with you, but in the shadows, with Mark Smeaton. While you are still at Greenwich, trying to make sense of the king's departure, Smeaton is already in Thomas Cromwell's house in Stepney. He is a commoner, unprotected by title or connections. He is the weak link, and Cromwell knows it. What happened to Smeaton in that house? Historians still argue whether he was subjected to physical torture. The law technically forbade the torture of anyone but the most hardened criminals without a special warrant, but Cromwell was a man who knew how to bend the rules. More likely, it was psychological torment. Imagine being Smeaton. You are a young man whose life is music and courtly flirtation. Suddenly, you are in a dark room, facing the most powerful and feared man in England, a man whose agents are known for their persuasive techniques. He questions you relentlessly about your relationship with the Queen. You deny everything, of course. You barely know her. You've played the lute for her. She once complimented your playing. That's it. But Cromwell is patient. He asks the same questions again and again. He hints at the things that could happen to you. The rack, the scavengers, daughter. Nasty, painful devices designed to dislocate joints and crush the human body. He reminds you that you are a nobody. No one will save you. But, he might suggest, there is a way out, a simple way. Just tell him what he wants to hear. Just confess. Tell him you were the Queen's lover. Perhaps he offers you a deal. Confess, and your life might be spared. Deny, and you will face a traitor's death, the most gruesome form of execution imaginable. The pressure must have been immense, the fear absolute. It is under this duress that the first crack appears in your defense. Smeaton breaks. He confesses to adultery with you on 3 separate occasions. It's a lie, almost certainly, but it's the lie Cromwell needs. It is the cornerstone of his entire case. With Smeaton's confession in hand, he now has leverage. He can go to Norris, to Weston, and say, "Your accomplice has already confessed. Why continue to deny it?" Meanwhile, your own ladies-in-waiting are being questioned. Cromwell's agents are interviewing them, asking about your private conversations, your moods, your friendships. They are looking for anything, any careless word or innocent gesture that can be twisted into proof. One of your ladies, a woman named Lady Worcester, reportedly confessed to her brother that she had been indiscreet herself and feared the Queen knew of her affair. Cromwell pounced on this. He twisted her words, suggesting that Lady Worcester knew of your affairs because you had confided in her. Another lady, Elizabeth Somerset, Countess of Worcester, was a key witness, her testimony shaped by fear and a desire to save her own skin. It's a classic case of divide and conquer. Your inner circle, the women you trusted, are being turned against you, their fear expertly manipulated to build the cage that will soon close around you. The web is being woven with terrifying speed. Each thread is a lie, each knot a coerced statement, but together they are creating a net that is strong enough to drag down a queen. While you are floating down the Thames, lost in your own fear and confusion, the narrative of your downfall is already being written, polished, and prepared for public consumption. The royal barge glides under the stone arches of London Bridge, its surface crowded with shops and houses, and you force yourself not to look up at the faces peering down. You feel like an animal being paraded on the way to slaughter. Finally, the barge rounds a bend, and the destination comes into view, stark and brutal against the skyline, the Tower of London. Its stone is not the pale, friendly limestone of your favored palaces, but a grim, gray rock that seems to absorb the light. It is a fortress, a palace, and a prison. For you, it has been all three. Your heart constricts as you see which entrance you are being taken to. Not the private royal entrance you used before your coronation, but the one reserved for the most infamous prisoners of the state. The byword postern, known to history as the Traitor's Gate. It's a low, menacing archway opening directly onto the river, its stone steps slick with green algae. The gate was designed so that prisoners could be brought in discreetly, away from the prying eyes of the London mob. For you, it is the ultimate symbol of your fall from grace. To enter the tower, through this gate is to be publicly branded a traitor. As the barge bumps against the landing, the constable of the tower, Sir William Kingston, is there to meet you. He is a tall, imposing man, and his face is a study in solemn duty. He bows, but it is a curt, formal gesture, stripped of the deference he would have shown you just yesterday. You step out of the barge, your legs unsteady. The air inside the tower walls feels different, stale, heavy with the weight of centuries of secrets and sorrow. And then, a moment of black, almost comical, confusion. You turn to Kingston and ask, "Must I go to a dungeon?" The word hangs in the air, a picture of rats and straw and dripping walls. Kingston, ever the stoic bureaucrat, seems almost startled by the question. "No, madam," he replies. "You shall go to your own lodgings, where you lay at your coronation." The irony is so cruel, so perfectly designed to inflict the maximum psychological pain that you can only imagine Cromwell himself dreamed it up. You are not being thrown into a dank cell. You are being imprisoned in the very same suite of royal apartments that you occupied in the days leading up to your crowning glory. The place where you prepared to become queen is now to be your prison. It's a mainstream historical fact that these apartments were specially refurbished for your coronation, decorated with lavish tapestries, gilded furniture, and your personal emblems, the falcon and the intertwined initials H and A. Now these symbols of your triumph will mock you at every turn. As you are escorted across the courtyard, you are in a state of near collapse. Your composure finally shatters. You fall to your knees on the cold stones and pray aloud, beseeching God to help you, to bear witness to your innocence. It's a moment of pure, desperate anguish. Kingston and his guards wait patiently, their faces impassive. This is not the fiery, imperious Anne Boleyn they know. This is a terrified woman whose world has been ripped out from under her in less than 24 hours. Finally, you allow them to lead you up the stairs and into the Queen's lodgings. The rooms are exactly as you remember them, but now they feel alien, menacing. The rich tapestries depicting scenes of chivalry and romance seem like a bitter joke. The canopy of the great state bed, embroidered with your own falcon crest, looms over you like a gilded cage. Every object, every piece of furniture, is a reminder of a life that has been stolen from you. Kingston leaves you with your ladies-in-waiting, but they are not the ones you chose. They are women selected by Cromwell, their purpose twofold, to serve you and to spy on you. Among them are Lady Kingston, the constable's wife, and most cruelly, women who were known to be your rivals at court, including one of your husband's former mistresses. You are surrounded by enemies disguised as companions. They are instructed to record every word you say, every sigh, every prayer. Your grief is not your own. It is evidence. You begin to talk, almost manically, a stream of consciousness born, of terror and disbelief. You swing wildly between hysterical laughter at the absurdity of it all and racking sobs of despair. You talk about Norris, recalling the foolish conversation about dead men's shoes. You mention Francis Weston, remembering how you once teased him about his affection for a kinswoman of yours over his own wife. You talk about Mark Smeaton, baffled, saying he was never in your chamber except at Winchester, where you saw him standing in the window. You are trying to make sense of the senseless, replaying every innocent encounter, every light-hearted jest, searching for the moment that could have been twisted into treason. And your ladies are listening. Lady Kingston, in particular, dutifully, reports every word to her husband, who in turn writes it all down in letters to Thomas Cromwell. The Queen hath a great desire to have the sacrament in her closet, he writes, noting your piety. And then, more damningly, she said, I have been so long in this house. She spake of Weston, that she had spoken to him because he did love her kinswoman, and Norris, she wished her mouth was shut, and that she had never spoken the words, of dead men's shoes. You are, in your terror, providing the very sound bites your enemies need. Your frantic, disjointed ramblings are being edited in real time, curated into a confession. One of the quirky, heartbreaking tidbits from Kingston's letters is your constant worry about what your father and mother will think. You seem less concerned with the king's wrath, and more with the shame you are bringing upon your family, the very family whose relentless ambition placed you on the throne. You also repeatedly ask where your brother is being held. The thought of George, your brilliant, beloved brother, locked away in this same fortress on a charge of incest, is a torment almost worse than your own fate. You know with a sickening certainty that this is the end. Not just for you, but for the entire Boleyn faction. The crocodile dung sunscreen of courtly favor has washed away, and your family is now fully exposed to the burning sun of the king's displeasure. While you are trapped in your gilded cage, endlessly replaying conversations and unwittingly incriminating yourself to your hand-picked jailers, the real work of sealing your fate is happening elsewhere in the Tower. The focus remains on the men. In the Tudor legal system, a queen could not be tried without evidence from her supposed accomplices. Cromwell has a confession from one, but it's a weak one, extracted from a low-born musician under duress. To make the case unassailable, he needs more. He needs one of the gentlemen to break. The interrogations are relentless. Sir Henry Norris, Sir Francis Weston, and Sir William Brereton are held in separate cells, likely in the Beauchamp or Bell Towers. They are gentlemen of high standing, men of courage and martial pride. They are not easily broken. Norris, in particular, is a problem for Cromwell. He is the king's groom of the stool, a position of incredible intimacy and trust. It meant he was not just a friend, but the man who attended Henry in his most private moments. For him to have betrayed the king with the queen was a story almost too shocking to be believed, yet too tantalizing for Cromwell to ignore. Henry himself, in a rare act that historians still argue over, intervenes. Was it a genuine attempt to save a beloved friend, or a cynical performance to appear merciful? He sends a personal delegation to Norris in the Tower, offering him a full pardon if he will just confess his guilt and implicate you. It is an extraordinary offer. The king is essentially handing Norris a get-out-of-jail-free card. All he has to do is sign a piece of paper that confirms the official story. Norris refuses. He stands firm. He insists on both your innocence and his own. He declares he would rather die 1,000 deaths than be guilty of such a falsehood against the Queen. It is a moment of incredible, almost foolhardy bravery. He is choosing certain death over a lie that would save his own life, but condemn you. His steadfast loyalty is a powerful testament to your innocence, but in the face of Cromwell's machine, it is ultimately futile. His refusal doesn't save you. It only seals his own doom. Weston and Brereton are also questioned, likely with the same blend of threats and promises. Like Norris, they deny everything. They admit to nothing more than the kind of witty, flirtatious, courtly behavior that was not only common, but expected in the high-stakes game of royal favor. They are knights, after all. A certain amount of gallantry towards the Queen was part of the job description. But Cromwell's interrogators twist every innocent compliment, every shared dance, every gift exchanged, into something sinister. This leaves Mark Smeaton. His confession is the linchpin of the entire prosecution. Without it, the case against the gentleman is merely their word against the king's suspicion. With it, Cromwell has a foundation, however shaky, upon which to build the scaffold. The pressure on Smeaton to not only stick to his story, but perhaps to elaborate on it, must have been immense. He is moved to a more secure cell, put in irons, a detail that strongly suggests he was, in fact, tortured, despite official denials. A mainstream historical fact is that Smeaton was the only one of the accused men who was not of noble birth, which legally made him more susceptible to torture. While the gentlemen could stand on their rights and demand a trial by their peers, Smeaton had no such protection. The confession he provides is damning. He reportedly admits to having relations with you 3 times. He gives dates and places, details likely fed to him by his interrogators. It's important to remember that we have no direct transcript of his confession, only Cromwell's summaries of it. He is a ghost in this story, a man whose voice is completely silenced, his entire identity reduced to a single coerced statement. The quirky, sad tidbit about Smeaton is that on the day of his arrest, he had just spent a considerable sum of money on a new livery, a special uniform, and a new horse. He was a young man on the rise, investing in his future at court, blissfully, unaware that he was about to become a disposable pawn in a game far above his station. So why did he confess? Fear, certainly. Torture, probably. But there may have been another, more subtle factor at play. Hope. Cromwell was a master of manipulation. He might have convinced Smeaton that the king didn't really want the gentleman punished. The king just wanted a divorce. He needed a reason to annul the marriage, and Smeaton's confession would provide it. Perhaps Cromwell promised him that if he cooperated, he would be pardoned in the end. He was just a musician, after all. Once the Queen was gone, the king would have no reason to punish a lowly lute player. It was a lie, of course, a cruel and calculated deception. But to a terrified young man, in a dark cell, it might have sounded like a lifeline. And so, with Smeaton's confession secured in writing and the gentleman remaining stubbornly defiant, Cromwell has what he needs to proceed. The evidence is laughably thin by modern standards. It consists of the testimony of one terrified commoner, coerced under unknown circumstances, and a collection of your own frantic ramblings from your prison chamber, carefully curated and edited by your enemies. There is no physical evidence, no eyewitnesses to any actual crime. It doesn't matter. The decision has already been made. The trials are not a process to discover the truth. They are a public performance designed to ratify a verdict that has already been handed down by the king. The stage is set, the actors are in place, and the final tragic act is about to begin. The first trial is set for May 12th, a mere 10 days after your arrest. It is not your trial. It's for the 4 commoners and gentlemen, Norris, Weston, Brereton, and Smeaton. You are held in your apartments, unable to see or hear the proceedings, but you are acutely aware of what is happening. Their fate is inextricably linked with yours. If they are found guilty, your own condemnation is all but certain. The trial is held at Westminster Hall, a grand, cavernous space designed to intimidate. A special commission of judges is appointed, packed with men loyal to the King and Cromwell, including your own father, Thomas Boleyn. The historical records are chillingly sparse on whether your father actually sat in judgment over the men accused of sleeping with his daughter. Some sources say he was present, a horrifying testament to his complete political capitulation. Others suggest he was excused from this specific duty, though he would later be forced to sit in judgment of his own son. Either way, his presence hangs over the proceedings, a symbol of how completely the Boleyn family has been broken and turned against itself. The 4 men are led before the court, Norris, Weston, and Brereton, dressed in the fine clothes of their rank, project an air of defiant innocence. Smeaton, in contrast, is a broken figure. He is the only one to plead guilty. He repeats the confession that was extracted from him in the Tower. When asked how he could have dared to touch the Queen, he gives a meek, pathetic answer, something about her making the first move. He sticks to the script. The other 3 plead not guilty. The prosecution, led by the King's attorneys, lays out its case. It is a masterpiece of insinuation and character assassination, relying entirely on Smeaton's confession and the edited highlights of your panicked conversations in the Tower. The court is told of the handkerchief incident. They are told of your joke about dead men's shoes. Every piece of courtly banter is presented as evidence of a deep-seated conspiracy. There is no cross-examination of witnesses in the modern sense. The accused are not allowed legal counsel. They can only speak for themselves, denying the charges to a jury that has already made up its mind. The jury itself is a carefully selected group of London merchants and local gentry, men who know which way the political wind is blowing. To acquit, these men would be to defy the King, an act of commercial and social suicide. The verdict is a foregone conclusion. All 4 are found guilty of high treason. The sentence is read out. They are to be taken back to the Tower of London and then drawn on hurdles to the public execution ground at Tyburn, where they will be hanged, cut down while still alive, disemboweled, and quartered. It is the most barbaric punishment the state can inflict. When the news of their conviction reaches you in your apartments, any lingering hope you might have had evaporates. You know your turn is next. 3 days later, on May 15th, it is time for your trial, and that of your brother, George. Because you are the Queen and George is a peer of the realm, you are not tried in a common court, but before a jury of your peers in the King's Hall within the Tower of London. A massive scaffold has been erected, creating a stage for this final act of political theater. About 2,000 spectators are packed into the hall, a mix of London's elite, foreign ambassadors, and anyone who could pull strings to get a ticket to the trial of the century. Your uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, is appointed to preside as Lord High Steward. He sits on a throne-like chair, under a canopy of state, the very picture of judicial authority. It's a bitter sight. He, more than anyone, owes his position to your family's rise. Now he is here to calmly and efficiently destroy it. You are led into the hall. You are no longer the hysterical weeping woman from the day of your arrest. You are composed, dignified, regal. You are dressed in black or dark gray velvet, your famous style impeccable even now. You make your curtsies to the court, your face pale but resolute. You are here to fight for your life, and you will do it with the one weapon you have left, your intelligence and queenly bearing. The charges are read out. Adultery, incest, plotting the king's death. You listen patiently, your expression unreadable. You plead not guilty in a clear, firm voice. The prosecution then presents its evidence, which is the same flimsy collection of hearsay and Smeaton's confession used at the earlier trial. As each point is made, you respond calmly and cleverly. You dismantle their arguments one by one. You provide context for the conversations, explaining the courtly conventions that the prosecution is deliberately misinterpreting. You deny the incest charge with a quiet, powerful dignity that sways many in the crowd. The spectators are impressed. The Spanish ambassador, Eustace Chapuis, your sworn enemy, grudgingly admits in his reports that you made such a brilliant and convincing defense that many observers believed you would be acquitted. A quirky tidbit from the trial is that one of the key pieces of evidence against you and your brother was a claim that you were seen laughing together. This was presented as proof of your unnatural, incestuous relationship, that you were mocking the king behind his back. It's a perfect example of how the most innocent, everyday human interaction was pathologized and twisted to fit the narrative of guilt. Then it is George's turn. He, too, defends himself with intelligence and wit. He easily refutes most of the charges. But then Cromwell's trap is sprung. The prosecution produces a piece of paper allegedly containing the specifics of the incest charge. The details are considered so obscene that they cannot be read aloud in open court. The paper is passed to George. He is forbidden from showing it to the jury or the public. But George, in a final act of defiant pride, reads the damning accusation, out loud anyway. It alleges that you had told your sister-in-law, Lady Rochford, that the king was not skillful in copulating with a woman and had neither skill nor virility. The courtroom is stunned into silence. George has just committed a fatal error. He may have proven the incest charge was ridiculous, but he has publicly insulted the king's manhood. In the hyper-masculine world of the Tudor court, this is an unforgivable sin. It seals his fate, and by extension, yours. Historians still argue whether George read the note out of arrogance or a desperate attempt to show how absurd the charges were. Whatever the motive, it was a tactical disaster. The jury of peers, which includes men who openly despise you, like the Earl of Northumberland, your former suitor, retires to consider its verdict. Their deliberation is brief. They return, and, one by one, each of the 26 noblemen places his hand on his heart and declares you guilty. The Duke of Norfolk, your uncle, his face like stone, pronounces the sentence. His voice trembles as he condemns his own niece. You are to be burned alive or beheaded at the king's pleasure. You receive the sentence with shocking composure. You raise your hand to speak, not to beg for mercy, but to swear on the damnation of your immortal soul that you are innocent of these crimes. You have done your best. You have fought with courage and intelligence, but you were never meant to win. The sentence hangs in the stale air of the hall, burned alive or beheaded at the king's pleasure. The choice of execution is significant. Burning was the prescribed punishment for women guilty of high treason, particularly when it involved a sexual crime against the sovereign, as it was seen as a purer, more cleansing death. Beheading by axe was the faster, more honorable death reserved for the nobility. By offering this choice, the court is maintaining a veneer of respect for your former rank, while simultaneously holding the most terrifying option in reserve. You are led from the King's Hall, back to your apartments. The 2,000 spectators watch you go. Their faces a mixture of pity, awe, and morbid excitement. You walk with your head held high, the very picture of wronged nobility. The composure you displayed during the trial remains intact. It is your final performance, and you will not falter. Back in your lodgings, the mask finally slips. The adrenaline fades, replaced by the chilling reality of your situation. You are a condemned woman. The only thing left to be decided is the method and the day. Sir William Kingston, the constable, finds you alternating between moments of calm resignation and fits of near-hysterical anxiety. You talk about the afterlife. You talk about your daughter, Elizabeth, now declared a bastard and stripped of her place in the succession. You worry about the souls of the men condemned with you, particularly your brother. Then news arrives. It is a message from the king, delivered via Cromwell. It is sold to you as an act of great clemency, a sign of the king's lingering affection for the woman he once moved mountains for. He has considered your sentence. He has decided you will not be burned. You will not even suffer the indignity of the common English axe, a notoriously clumsy and brutal instrument. No, Henry, in his infinite mercy, has decreed that you shall have the privilege of a death befitting a queen of French blood and taste. He is sending for an expert executioner from Calais, a man famed for his skill with a sword. You are supposed to be grateful. A sword was seen as a much cleaner and more noble instrument of death. An axe blow delivered by a brawny but often inexpert. English executioner could be a gruesome, botched affair, sometimes requiring multiple strikes to sever the head. A skilled swordsman, in contrast, could dispatch his victim with a single, silent stroke. The mainstream historical fact is that this was an unprecedented act. No one had ever been executed by a French swordsman on English soil before. It was an exotic, bespoke execution, tailor-made for you. But this mercy is, in reality, an act of profound psychological cruelty. Think about it. Instead of a swift end, you are now condemned to an indefinite wait. Your life now depends on the travel arrangements and sailing schedule of a French civil servant. How long will it take him to get the message? To pack his tools? To secure passage across the notoriously rough English Channel? Every creak of the floorboards, every shout from the courtyard below could be the sound of his arrival. Your prison has transformed into a death row waiting room with an unknown timetable. There is another, more practical reason for Henry's choice. A sword required the victim to kneel upright, whereas the axe required them to lay their head on a wooden block. For a woman as famously proud and defiant as you, there was a real fear that you might refuse to lay your head down, creating a messy, undignified scene on the scaffold. A sword was quicker and required less cooperation from the condemned. Henry was stage managing your death down to the last detail, ensuring it would be a smooth, efficient, and irreversible piece of statecraft. While you are contemplating this strange mercy, another legal process is set in motion. 2 days after your trial, on May 17th, Archbishop Thomas Cranmer, the man who annulled Henry's marriage to Catherine of Aragon so he could marry you, travels to the Tower. He is here to preside over a secret ecclesiastical court. The purpose? To annul your marriage to the king. It's a bizarre legal maneuver. If your marriage was never valid in the first place, then you were never legally queen. If you were never queen, you couldn't have committed adultery against the Iobai king, and therefore you couldn't be guilty of treason. It's a classic Cromwellian mindbender, a legal paradox designed to cover all the bases. Historians still argue about the precise legal grounds for the annulment. Was it your supposed pre-contract to marry Henry Percy, the Earl of Northumberland? Or was it the fact that Henry had previously had an affair with your older sister Mary? According to church law, this created an affinity, a spiritual kinship that made his marriage to you incestuous and therefore invalid. This is a wonderfully weird tidbit. Henry was essentially annulling his marriage to you on the grounds of incest at the same time as he was executing your brother for the very same crime. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. You agree to the annulment. Why? At this point, what do you have to lose? Perhaps Cranmer, your old family friend and ally, convinces you that cooperating might save your life, or at least the lives of the condemned men. Perhaps you do it for your daughter, Elizabeth. By agreeing the marriage was invalid, you are accepting her bastardy, but you may have hoped it would distance her from your own tainted blood and keep her safe from the king's wrath. Whatever your reason, you submit. The marriage that tore England from Rome and changed the course of history is dissolved with the stroke of a pen. You are no longer Queen Anne. You are simply the Lady Anne Boleyn, a condemned traitor waiting for a swordsman to cross the sea. On that same day, from the window of your chamber, you might have heard the sounds of hammers and saws. They are building your scaffold. Not on Tower Hill, the public space outside the fortress walls where traitors were usually dispatched. No, another of Henry's mercies. You are to be executed in private within the walls of the tower on a green space in front of the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula. It's a courtesy extended to spare you the jeers of the London mob, but it also ensures the event is controlled with a hand-picked audience of officials and notables. No unruly crowds, no chance of a riot, no possibility of a last-minute rescue. Just a quiet, orderly, state-sanctioned killing. The morning of May 18th dawns. This, you believe, is the day. Sir William Kingston has told you to prepare yourself, for your execution is scheduled for noon. You rise early, spending the long morning hours in prayer with your almoner. You are calm, almost eerily so. You have faced the worst, and now you are ready for the end. You have made your peace with God, professing your innocence one last time during your final confession. You have even, in a final gesture of queenly grace, sent a message to the king, commending her soul to him and thanking him for all he has done for you, raising you from a private gentlewoman to a marchioness and then to a queen, and now giving you the final promotion to a martyr in heaven. Noon approaches. You can hear the murmur of the assembled crowd on the green below. You are waiting for the summons, the final knock on the door. But it doesn't come. Noon passes. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. The silence from Kingston stretches into an agony of suspense. What is happening? Is there a reprieve? A last-minute change of heart from the king? The hope is a sharp, painful thing, a flicker in the darkness you had thought you'd extinguished. Finally, Kingston appears. His face is etched with an almost apologetic discomfort. He informs you that there has been a delay. The execution has been postponed. It will not happen today. It will happen tomorrow morning. early. He gives no reason, but you both know why. The swordsman from Calais has not yet arrived. This is the phantom execution, one of the most psychologically brutal aspects of your final days. To prepare yourself for death, to reach a state of spiritual and mental readiness, only to have it snatched away at the last second, is a unique and refined form of torture. You are forced to descend from that peak of acceptance and spend another night in the shadow of the gallows, another night in the mocking splendor of your former royal suite, another night listening for footsteps in the corridor. Historians still argue whether this delay was an intentional act of cruelty on Henry's part, or simply a matter of poor logistics and unfavorable winds on the English Channel. Was Henry sadistically drawing out your suffering, making you die twice? Or was it just the unfortunate reality of 16th century travel? Either way, the effect on you is profound. That evening, you are told that the men, your brother George, Norris, Weston, Brereton, and Smeaton have been executed. Their sentences were commuted from the full horror of a traitor's death to a simple beheading by axe on Tower Hill. It was another of the king's mercies. You were spared the sight, but not the knowledge of it. From your window, you might have been able to see the crowds dispersing from the hill. You know that your beloved brother is gone. You know that Norris, whose only crime was his unwavering loyalty, is gone. And you know that Smeaton, the young musician whose coerced confession was the linchpin of the whole affair, is gone too. A quirky and pathetic tidbit from that day concerns Smeaton's final moments. On the scaffold, unlike the gentlemen who all maintained their innocence and the Queen's honor to the last, Smeaton said something ambiguous. He stated, "Masters, I pray you all pray for me, for I have deserved the death." To Cromwell and the government, this was a final admission of guilt, but to many others, it was the cryptic statement of a terrified young man who believed he deserved to die, not for committing adultery with you, but for bearing false witness against you. A mortal sin. His words were just vague enough to be useful to the state, while perhaps salving his own conscience in his final seconds. The news of the men's deaths, particularly George's, sends you into a fresh wave of despair, but it is a quieter, more exhausted grief now. The waiting continues. The French executioner was a real person, though his name is lost to history. He was likely a municipal executioner from Saint-Omer, a town in the Pale of Calais, which was then English territory. He was not some mythical figure, but a working man, a specialist in his grim trade. Imagine his journey. He receives an urgent summons from the King of England. He has to gather his equipment, most importantly, his heavy, double-edged executioner's sword, a specialized tool, not a normal weapon of war. He has to make his way to the coast, haggle for passage, and then endure the rough sea journey to Dover, followed by a hard, 2-day ride to London. All the while, you are waiting. Kingston, observing you, is a nervous wreck. He writes to Cromwell in a state of high anxiety. "This morning she sent for me," he writes, "that I might be with her. At such time she received the good Lord, to the intent I should hear her speak as touching her innocency alway to be clear. He is worried you will make a scene, that you will deliver a fiery speech proclaiming your innocence and denouncing the king. But your mood swings again. One moment you are devout and calm, the next you are seized by a dark, almost manic humor. You send for Kingston again. You ask him about the executioner, about his skill. You say, I hear say the executioner is very good, and I have a little neck. And then you put your hands around your throat and laugh. The laughter is high-pitched, unsettling. Kingston is horrified. He reports the incident to Cromwell, writing that he has seen many men and also women executed, and that they have been in great sorrow, but to his knowledge, this lady has much joy and pleasure in death. He doesn't understand. He mistakes your terror, your hysteria, your desperate attempt to find some control in a situation where you have none, for joy. He sees a monster. We see a woman at the absolute limit of human endurance, her mind pushed to the breaking point by a cruelly orchestrated waiting game. The phantom execution is over. The real one is now just hours away. The morning of Friday, May 19th, 1536, arrives. There will be no more delays. The executioner from Calais is here. He has been housed quietly, his presence in the tower a closely guarded secret. Your execution is scheduled for 8 o'clock in the morning, an unusually early hour, again designed to minimize the potential for public spectacle and unrest. You wake before dawn. There is a strange and profound stillness in your heart now. The frantic swings between hysteria and despair are gone, replaced by a focused, almost serene resignation. The psychological torment of the past few days has burned away everything, but the essential core of your being. You know what you have to do. You dress with meticulous care. This is your final public appearance, and you will look the part of a queen. You choose a gown of dark gray or black damask, trimmed with ermine fur. Ermine, the fur of royalty, is a subtle but potent statement. Over your hair, you wear your signature French hood, which sits far back on the head, exposing your dark hair, which is neatly pinned up. Around your neck, you wear no grand jewels, no ropes of pearls like the ones that defined your years of triumph. Instead, you wear a simple, small crucifix, a declaration of the faith in which you intend to die. Your appearance is sober, dignified, and utterly regal. At the appointed hour, Sir William Kingston comes for you one last time. You are not alone. Your ladies, the very women who were set to spy on you, are with you now. In these final hours, their shared experience of your ordeal seems to have fostered a genuine, if belated, sympathy. They are weeping openly. You, in contrast, are the one offering comfort, telling them not to be sad, for you are going to God, and you are innocent of the charges. You take your last sacrament in your private closet, once again swearing on the host, the consecrated communion, wafer that you are innocent. For a 16th century person of faith, this was the most solemn oath imaginable. To lie at such a moment was to guarantee the eternal damnation of your soul. It was your final, sacred testimony. Then you begin your final walk. You emerge from the Queen's lodgings into the crisp morning air. The short journey takes you across a stretch of green, an area now known as Tower Green. The scaffold is waiting. It is not a high, dramatic structure, but a low platform, perhaps only waist-high, draped in black cloth. It looks stark and ugly. Against the green grass and the ancient stone of the White Tower, the oldest part of the fortress, which looms behind it. The crowd is small and select, just as Henry and Cromwell intended. There are members of the Privy Council, including Cromwell himself, there to witness the successful conclusion of his work. The Lord Mayor of London is present, along with various aldermen and city officials. And, of course, your uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, his duty not yet done. There are perhaps 1,000 people in all, a silent, somber audience for this unprecedented event. You walk towards the scaffold with a steady, unhurried pace. Kingston walks on one side of you, your almoner on the other. Your ladies trail behind, their sobs the only sound breaking the heavy silence. As you approach the platform, you see him for the first time. The executioner. He is not a hulking, masked figure from a nightmare. He is a man dressed in sober clothes. The mainstream historical fact is that executioners were not social outcasts, but often respected, if feared, civic employees. He might have been a swordsmith or a fencer by trade, a man whose work required a steady hand and a strong nerve. He is holding the sword. It is not a light, elegant rapier, but a heavy, two-handed, double-edged blade, specifically designed for the task. It has no sharp point, only a razor-sharp edge, and its weight is balanced to provide maximum momentum for a single, clean cut. It is a terrifyingly efficient instrument of death. A quirky but macabre tidbit is the etiquette of the scaffold. It was customary for the condemned to make a short speech and also to forgive their executioner and tip them. The fee was meant to ensure the executioner did their job well and didn't make the victim suffer. You have likely already arranged for a pouch of gold coins to be given to the man who is about to kill you. You mount the few steps onto the scaffold. The straw strewn on the platform floor to soak up the blood crackles under your feet. For a moment you stand there, surveying the crowd. You see the faces of the men who conspired against you, who judged you, who now stand ready to watch you die. There is no fear in your eyes, only a kind of weary sorrow. You turn to address the small crowd. This is your last chance to speak, to control your own narrative. But you know you are walking a razor's edge. If you protest your innocence too loudly or accuse the king of tyranny, your speech will be cut short, and your final moments will be a chaotic, undignified struggle. Worse, it could be seen as treason itself, potentially endangering your daughter, Elizabeth, and the few family members you have left. The memory of your brother George's disastrous outburst at his trial is surely fresh in your mind. Remember how he sealed his fate by insulting the king? You will not make the same mistake. Your final words must be a masterpiece of diplomacy and coded meaning. You look out over the silent faces, take a breath, and begin to speak. Good Christian people, I am come hither to die, for according to the law, and by the law I am judged to die, and therefore I will speak nothing against it. Your voice is clear and carries across the silent green. The speech is a model of careful composition. You start by acknowledging the lawfulness of your execution. You are not a rebel fighting the verdict. You are an obedient subject accepting the judgment of the king's court. This is crucial. It is the statement of a loyal subject, not a defiant. Traitor, I am come hither to accuse no man, nor to speak anything of that, whereof I am accused and condemned to die. This is the most brilliant and subtle part of your speech. You do not protest your innocence directly, which would be dangerous. Instead, you simply refuse to speak of the charges. You create a void, an absence. By saying you will not speak of it, you draw everyone's attention to it. You neither confirm nor deny the accusations, but in the context of your solemn declarations on the sacrament just hours before, your silence on the scaffold speaks volumes. It's a passive resistance, a refusal to participate in the fiction that has been constructed around you. But I pray God save the king and send him long to reign over you. For a gentler nor a more merciful prince was there never. And to me, He was ever a good, a gentle, and sovereign lord. This is the part that must have tasted like ash in your mouth. Praising Henry, calling him gentle and merciful, the man who cast you aside for another woman, who signed your death warrant, who orchestrated this entire sham. But it is politically necessary. It is the price of a dignified death, and, you hope, the price of your daughter's future safety. You are commending his soul to God, just as you did in your final message. It is the ultimate act of a submissive. Wife and subject, a final performance of the role he demanded you play. Historians still argue over the sincerity of these words. Were they a final, bitter piece of sarcasm, a coded message that everyone present would have understood? Or were they a genuine, if baffling expression of the complex bond you once shared with Henry, a remnant of the great love that had once consumed you both? And if any person will meddle of my cause, I require them to judge the best. And thus I take my leave of the world and of you all, and I heartily desire you all to pray for me. O Lord, have mercy on me. To God I commend my soul. Judge. The best. This is your final coded plea. It's a direct appeal to posterity, to history. Don't simply accept the official story, you are saying. Look deeper. Consider the circumstances. Be charitable in your assessment. It is the closest you can come to asking the world to believe in your innocence. With your speech concluded, you turn to your weeping ladies. You remove your ermine-trimmed mantle and hand it to one of them. You give them your prayer book. Then, you untie the ribbons of your French hood and remove it, handing it to another. Your hair is already pinned up, but you tuck away any stray strands. You need a clear, unobstructed neck. You then take a linen cap from one of your ladies and tie it over your hair. You kneel down on the straw. Unlike with the axe, there is no block. You will die kneeling upright in a posture of prayer. The executioner, who has been standing quietly to the side, now approaches you. He is meant to ask your forgiveness, a standard part of the ritual. In some accounts, he does, and you give it. In a more dramatic version of the story, he plays a small, cruel trick to ensure a clean strike. He calls out, "Boy, bring me my sword," to distract you, to make you turn your head. As you look away, he draws the sword, which had been hidden in the straw at his feet. There is a flash of steel in the morning light, a sound that one witness described as being like the whisper of a sword through the air. It is over in less than a second, a single perfect strike. The Calais swordsman has earned his fee. Your little neck has not been a problem. There is a moment of stunned silence, and then a strange, collective sigh from the onlookers. Even those who hated you, who celebrated your fall, are shaken by the finality, the quiet efficiency of it. All, your ladies, with immense courage, step forward. They cover your body with a white sheet. They gently take your head, which has fallen nearby, and wrap it in linen. And here is the final pathetic indignity. In the meticulous planning for your execution, the French swordsman, the private scaffold, the hand-picked audience, no one thought to arrange for a proper coffin. It's a shocking oversight. After a few moments of panicked confusion, someone finds a long, rough-hewn wooden chest, an old arrow locker from the Tower Armory. This is to be your coffin. Your body and your head are placed inside this crude box. The small crowd disperses. Cromwell has his victory. The king is free to marry Jane Seymour, which he will do in just 11 days. The show is over. Your remains are carried a few yards to the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, St. Peter in chains, the parish church of the Tower. You are buried in an unmarked grave in the chancel, next to the brother with whom you were accused of committing such monstrous sins. You entered the Tower as a queen, and you leave it as a collection of remains in a box of spare parts. But in your final speech, you had asked people to judge the best. You had appealed to a future you would never see. And, in the end, history, if not your own husband, would begin to do just that, piecing together the story of a brilliant, ambitious woman who flew too close to the sun and was destroyed by the very man who had lifted her into the sky. The story of your final days does not end with the thud of the arrow chest being lowered into the earth. It lingers, a ghost in the corridors of power, a cautionary tale whispered for centuries. The immediate aftermath is a swift and brutal rewriting of history. All images of you are ordered to be destroyed. Your coat of arms is painted over, your falcon emblem chiseled away from the walls of the palaces you once graced. It is a concerted effort to erase you, to make it as though you never existed, never reigned. But a memory, especially one as potent as yours, is a difficult thing to kill. Slowly, as the years pass and the reign of your daughter, Elizabeth of Fermers, begins, your story starts to be reclaimed. The whore of Catholic propaganda and the traitor of Henry's court gradually transforms into the Protestant martyr, the mother of the glorious Virgin Queen. Your death becomes a foundational story for the New England, a sacrifice that paved the way for its future greatness. Your plea on the scaffold to judge the best begins to be answered, as generations of historians and storytellers sift through the biased accounts and coerced confessions, attempting to find the real woman beneath the layers of myth and slander. They find a woman of sharp intellect, of deep faith, of fierce ambition, and of a fatal, tragic pride. And so, as the soft darkness gathers around you now, and the edges of this story begin to blur, let the final image be one of quiet vindication. The arrow chest in its unmarked grave holds only bones. Your spirit, your legacy, escaped the tower's walls. It endured the erasure, outlasted the tyrant who condemned you, and ultimately found its voice in the long, slow passage of time. The whispers on Tower Green have faded, replaced by the soft hum of a world you could never have imagined, a world that still, after nearly 500 years, remembers your name. Let that thought comfort you as you drift now, gently, into your own sweet dreams.